Nobody declutters their life in a weekend. The light bulb moment when that clicked for me completely changed the way I approached my own decluttering journey and helped me to actually get it done. Today, as we talk about it, I truly believe it is going to shift the way that you see decluttering too. Decluttering, not just your home, but truly your whole life, it's not an event. It's a relationship with your possessions, your habits, your memories, your identity, your expectations. Once I understood that, I could then look at my things and ask, well, what exactly am I working through here? When I started focusing on decluttering a few years ago, I saw that not all clutter is created equal. There are 4 layers that get increasingly difficult because of our attachment to the items in them. The first layer is out of sight, out of mind. This is the clutter that you have been avoiding: papers, junk, drawers, random bins, and just stuff. Layer 2 is happy memories. These are items connected to meaningful moments and people and seasons that make you smile. In layer 3, we have my ideal self. This layer is tied to identity. It is the clothes, the hobbies, the purchases, and just in case items that represent either the person that you hoped that you would be or the person you're afraid of becoming. And then layer 4 is it's so hard to say goodbye. This is the deepest layer where clutter is connected to grief or love and loss and deep emotional attachment. Everything that I have ever struggled to declutter has fit in one of those 4 categories. But something that I haven't really gone in depth with is the fact that every single one of those layers is going to move at a different speed. And if you don't know that going in, you will absolutely get discouraged the moment that you hit something that is emotionally complicated. Now, hold on to that, because that mismatch, expecting every layer to move at the same speed, is exactly the mistake that turns a Saturday project into a weekend wasted. Let me show you what I mean. You know that feeling where you wake up Saturday morning and you are like, this is it, I'm about to do this. You have your coffee, playlist, donation bags, bins, you are ready. 2 or 3 hours in, you're tired. Why? Because you have been making decisions, hundreds of them. Keep it, donate it, regret it later. Does someone else want it? Every object is a decision, and decision making is exhausting. So we've been making all of these decisions for hours. Then you hit something that makes you pause. Maybe it's your kid's artwork or paperwork that you have avoided for years, something from someone that you loved. Now the work slows down because some things came up that you weren't prepared to deal with. We're now a few more hours in. The time comes where you were supposed to be done, but you're not. And your place looks a whole lot worse than when you started. And you don't ever want to come back to it because it wore you out every which way. Why do we do this to ourselves? I'll tell you why. It's because what we consume. You know the videos: extreme weekend declutter, reset my entire house in 48 hours. I decluttered 1,304 items in 30 minutes. There is nothing wrong with these videos. They are satisfying and fun to watch, and everybody loves a quick success. But once you actually start, you realize that you're not just decluttering a weekend's worth of stuff. It is years of postponed decisions, old habits, seasons of survival mode, and its lingering impacts. Gifts, guilt, grief, memories, dreams. Babe, you are not just sorting through objects. You're walking through the history of your life. Of course, that takes time. The people who actually transform their lives, they don't treat it like a weekend event. They treat it like a lifestyle that they keep coming back to. They understand that progress compounds, and it's not overnight, not even in a single weekend. That is a lot of mindset work before we even get into the most important part, which is how long does this actually take and how should I do it? I'm about to break that down layer by layer. But first, I need a drink of water. You know what? Let me just take a quick second to tell you about something we all need more of, which is staying hydrated. As someone who is really focused on my health, getting enough water is always at the top of my list, but plain water can be so boring sometimes. Something that I've been doing for the last year or so is making electrolytes part of my daily routine to add flavor, but also boost that hydration. And so a big thank you to Ultima Replenisher for sponsoring this video. They sent me over 2 of their multi-packs that have all of these flavor options. One is the original variety and the other is the Martini. I am a tart girly, so my favorite is the lemonade. It is just a perfect summer flavor. This is the one that I'm having right now. They are just so nice and refreshing. They have 6 key electrolytes that our bodies just need. No calories, no carbs, no sugars, no artificial sweeteners. and it only uses plant-based flavors and colors. And it's yummy, which makes getting in that water so much easier. Head to the link in the description below to stay hydrated with Ultima Replenisher. Now, you're probably thinking, all right, Christy, I got it. A weekend might be a bit much. How long should this actually take? Well, it depends entirely on what kind of work that you're doing. So let's take it back to my 4 layers to understand what are realistic expectations in each category. We're also going to approach it with these truths. All clutter isn't created equal. A weekend is a good start, but not an end goal. And you will likely bounce between layers in a single decluttering session. First up, layer 1, out of sight, out of mind. This is usually the quickest layer. For many people, we are talking a few minutes to maybe days or a couple of weeks, depending on how much stuff you have and what you need to do with that stuff. Usually this layer isn't emotionally difficult, but it can be mentally difficult because these are all things that you have been simply avoiding. The junk drawer, the expired medicine, the random cords, the pile of mail. You have looked at it so many times that your brain has convinced you that it is this huge project when really you just need to start. I always tell people, don't try to do the whole thing in one sitting. I have done it and I don't recommend it at all. So how do we do it? I want you to set parameters around the time that it takes. You can do this one of two ways. Do it for a set amount of time, like 30 minutes, or one particular category. Think one junk drawer. As someone who gets distracted really easily, the one category is usually my favorite and my go-to when I'm doing this. But whichever way you choose, just do that. You have to learn to come to grips with the act of going back, and you never do that by being intense. Think of it like working out. You would never wake up one day and say, all right, I'm gonna run a marathon today. You don't have the stamina for it, and your body and mind aren't ready for that level of intensity. When you do it in a reasonable way, it breaks the pattern and the tendency to avoid those things because in your head, they no longer take the very life out of you. It is just a small part of your day. All right, let's move on to layer 2, which is happy memories. Here, the pace naturally slows down because every item has a story. Birthday cards, vacation souvenirs, children's artwork, wedding keepsakes, things that people gave you years ago but you don't use or look at or even think about. Now, every decision takes a little longer because you're no longer deciding, do I need this? But you are asking how much of your past that you physically need to keep. Depending on where you are with those items, this layer may take, again, a few minutes or several weeks because sometimes you have to let it marinate to determine if you are ready or even want to let it go. So for example, my lovely, beautiful nieces, when they were itty bitty, gave me all of these coloring pages that they colored on with all of the coloring skill of a 4-year-old, and then they gave them to me as gifts. I kept them for a bit because they were sweet and they made me think of them, and when I pulled them out, they made my heart smile, but they did not make my space happy, so I got rid of them. If you're watching this, girls, I love you, but I'm sorry. I got rid of them. Not all of them, but most of them. After saving them for however long, the decision to get rid of these bits of coloring pages, that was easy. On the other side, my background is teaching. I had students who gave me presents for Christmas or Teacher Appreciation Week. They were super thoughtful and a snapshot of a moment in time. So it took me some time to decide what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to let go. Sometimes you'll sit down intending to go through an entire memory box and you'll only make it halfway. That's okay. You don't get extra points for rushing through memories. So how do we do it? When you come to a happy memory item, I want you to look at it and then ask yourself, do I want this? It sounds incredibly simple, but many times we hold these things because we feel like we should keep them, not because we actually want to. If you find that you do, organize it so that you can easily come back to it. If you are unsure, organize it so that you can easily come back to it and make a decision the next time you see it. Looking at those things opens the possibility of letting it go if it no longer adds value to your life. Doing this process will give you permission to, one, not have to keep everything that ever made you smile, but also permission to pause and think about it. And then the stuff that you keep starts to actually mean something again instead of just existing in a bin somewhere. Moving on to layer 3, my ideal self. This isn't the hardest layer, but it is the layer where most people get discouraged and stuck, because here you got to be real honest with yourself. This is the identity layer, about how you see yourself and where you are relative to that. Sometimes you're letting go of a version of yourself that you envisioned, but for whatever reason, never happened. This can include things like hobbies that you were sure you were going to start, books that you have moved from house to house because you are definitely going to read them one day. Craft supplies. My girlies with the craft supplies. You have a special place in my heart because these craft supplies got you in a chokehold, but I love it. I love it. Sometimes you're letting go of pressure that you have been carrying for years. This might be the expensive purchases that you never used, or stuff that you're scared to throw away because it feels wasteful or not environmentally friendly. Sometimes you're finally admitting that season is over. This can be clothes that no longer fit. Also, hobbies that you no longer do. Stuff from when your kiddos were little and you're not having kids anymore. While there is something incredibly freeing about getting rid of these things, it can also be scary. And so these things usually don't happen overnight. For most people, decluttering this layer happens over weeks or months if you are really focused. Like I said, in layer 2, you have to look at it. And by looking at it, you start getting acquainted with the idea of letting it go. So how do we do it? Expect to go through the same closet more than once. It is okay if you open a storage bin, feel emotionally complicated, and then 6 months later, you are suddenly ready to let go of something that you couldn't before. That's part of the process, and it is a sign that you're growing and you recognize that you've changed. Also, be honest with yourself about how it actually fits in your life. There are some hard cuts that you are going to have to make here and some decisions that you are going to have to make, but I promise you, it is so worth it. Again, even if it takes you a minute, at least looking at it and wrapping your brain around letting it go is going to be so much more powerful than just saying, well, of course I'm going to keep it. I actually designed my 30-day decluttering guide with this exact reality in mind, not because I think that you are going to finish your entire house in 30 days. Unless you're already a minimalist, you won't. I created it because when people start understanding the mindset and have tools to implement it in a realistic and fun and thoughtful way, they are much more likely to keep going. Most people just need a plan that says, here's today's assignment and here's why. That's exactly what this is. It's linked below if you're interested. Layer 4, it's so hard to say goodbye. This one is very different and it doesn't have a clear timeline. Most of us, this takes years. In this layer, we have grief and deep attachment. This is where you find yourself holding something and suddenly you're not even looking at the object anymore. You see everything that it represented. The person, the season, the life that is never coming back. And the idea of letting it go feels painful, like a death. I've had so many people ask me, how do I know when I'm ready? And honestly, I don't know that anybody else can answer that for you. But I do know that being emotional isn't a sign that you have to keep it. I've shared often that after my parents passed, I kept everything because it felt like it was all that I had left of them. So one of the hardest things that I had to come to grips with was that letting go of their stuff didn't mean that I was forgetting them. And so I share that with you. You don't have to carry every physical reminder in order to carry the impact that this person or thing or season had on your life. That realization gave me so much freedom. But I'll be honest, I did not get there on my own. I got there because I had key people around me who encouraged me and who helped me to actually let go instead of just white knuckling through it all on my own. That's really important because most people in your life won't know how to hold that with you and to help you get on the other side of it. And I really appreciate the collective for that reason because yes, we talk about decluttering, but underneath it, it's really about life and identity and faith and becoming women who stop carrying what we no longer need, whether it is in our homes or everywhere else. So if layer 4 is where you are right now, please do not try to do it completely alone. Find your version of that room, whatever that looks like for you. Also, be gentle with yourself. Don't avoid it. Hold it. Name what it meant. Cry if you need to, and then decide if you're keeping it on purpose or because you don't know how to move on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with keeping truly meaningful things. I still have things of my parents, but most often in this layer, we need to heal. We never actually get to the healing by avoiding it or not allowing ourselves to process the idea of what it would mean to let it go. Also, I'm not fully convinced that we heal if we skip straight to the decision, keep or toss, without ever actually making peace with what that thing represents. After interacting with it, you will come to a place where you know when you're ready to let it go. There will be some things that you keep because they are valuable and precious. Other things you'll say, nope, don't need that anymore. And you'll realize that you get to decide what to do with those things without it being a decision about how much that person or season or whatever it is mattered. So let's take a step back and see it all in one space. Layer 1 might take minutes to days. Layer 2, you can probably do that in minutes to weeks, depending on the things. Layer 3 may take a few months. And then layer 4, that just moves at the pace that healing requires. But months and even years is reasonable. We are so tempted to believe that decluttering is just about getting rid of stuff. But if you want to be successful, I need you to stop thinking like that. Stop trying to be someone who says, I decluttered my entire house in one weekend, because that is not realistic or sustainable. You will just buy and keep more crap because you haven't become someone who lets go. The real goal of decluttering is to become the woman, become the person who doesn't quit on themselves and who no longer needs to carry things that don't add value. When that becomes how you approach it, yes, your home will be nice and clean, but you will also find that it changes your whole life. I love you. If you're not subscribed, like, what are you doing? I'm gonna need you to jump on that. Other than that, I love you so much, and I'll see you in my next. Mwah. Bye for now. Now, if you've been around my channel for a while, you've probably heard of or found me talking about the 4 layers of clutter. If you're new here or need a refresher, the short version is this.